The research ship Harmony's Edge drifted through the dark space between stars like a wounded bird trying to stay in the air. Commander Ziltara pressed her long fingers against the smooth control panel and watched the red warning lights flash across her blue-skinned face. The ship's main power core was failing, and she could hear the strange grinding sounds coming from deep inside the vessel. "How long do we have?" she asked her chief engineer, a tall creature with 4 arms named Kexrio. His species was known for being the best mechanics in the galaxy, but even he looked worried. "Maybe 3 hours before the life support shuts down." "Completely," Kexrio said, his voice making a whistling sound through his breathing tubes. "The Krex Raiders hit us hard? They damaged our main reactor and took out half our shield generators." Ziltara closed her large eyes for a moment. The Krex were the worst kind of pirates in this part of space. They were huge reptile-like creatures who loved violence and took pleasure in destroying peaceful ships. Her crew was made up of scientists and researchers, not fighters. They had been studying the strange plants and animals on nearby worlds when the attack came without warning. "Commander, I'm picking up movement on the long-range sensors," called out Thymos from the communications station. He was a member of the Villani species, just like Ziltara, but much younger. His hands shook as he worked the controls. "The Krex? Ships are coming back. They're about 2 hours away." Ziltara felt her heart sink. The Krex had attacked them, stolen their research data, and left them for dead. Now they were returning, probably to finish the job and take whatever valuable equipment was left on the ship. "Can we run?" she asked Kexrio. The engineer shook his head sadly. "Our main engines are offline. The backup engines might get us moving, but not fast enough to escape. And if we try to push them too hard, we'll lose life support even faster." The bridge fell silent, except for the humming of the failing systems and the occasional spark from damaged circuits. Ziltara looked around at her crew. There was Prindle, the medical officer, whose soft purple skin showed the stress patterns that his species displayed when frightened. There was Dr. Yulinara, the chief scientist, who had spent her whole life studying peaceful creatures and had never seen real violence before today. And there were 12 other crew members, all of them brilliant in their own fields, but completely unprepared for this kind of danger. "Send out a distress call," Ziltara finally said. "Use all frequencies. Maybe someone will hear us." Thamos nodded and began working on his console. "What should I say?" "Tell them we're a research vessel under attack by Krex Raiders. Tell them we need immediate help." She paused. "And tell them we don't have much time." The young communications officer's fingers moved quickly over the controls. Within minutes, he had sent the message out into space using every communication method their ship had. The signal would travel at light speed in all directions, hoping to reach any friendly vessel that might be able to help. "Message sent, Commander," Thamos reported. "But there are no known military ships in this area. The nearest Villani patrol is at least 6 hours away." Ziltara nodded grimly. She had expected as much. This was a remote part of space, far from the main shipping lanes and military patrol routes. That was exactly why they had chosen it for their research mission. Now that same isolation was going to get them all killed. "Keep monitoring all frequencies," she ordered. "Maybe there's a merchant ship or a transport vessel nearby that we don't know about." The next hour passed slowly. Kexrio and his engineering team worked desperately to get more power to the shields and weapons, but the damage was too severe. The Krex had known exactly where to hit them to cause the most harm. Meanwhile, the enemy ships continued to get closer, and the life support systems continued to fail. "Commander," Thamos called out suddenly, his voice excited. "I'm getting a response to our distress call." Ziltara hurried over to the communications station. "Who is it? Villani military?" "No, Commander, it's strange. I've never heard of this species before." Thamos frowned at his screens. "They call themselves humans, and they say they're from a ship called the Iron Wolf." "Humans?" Ziltara had been a diplomat before becoming a ship commander, and she knew the names of every intelligent species in the known galaxy. "I've never heard of them either. Are you sure you're translating correctly?" The translation systems are working fine, Thymos confirmed. They're speaking in a language that's not in our databases, but the universal translator is handling it. They say, they received our distress call and they're coming to help. Dr. Yelenara looked up from her science station. Commander, I've been checking our records. There's no species called humans in any of our databases. No planets, no colonies, no trade agreements, nothing. That's impossible, Zoltara said. Every intelligent species in the galaxy has been catalogued. We've been exploring space for thousands of years. Maybe they're from outside our normal space lanes, suggested Prindle. There are still unexplored regions beyond the outer rim. Thymos held up his hand for silence. Commander, they're sending another message. They want to know our exact position and the nature of our emergency. Zoltara thought quickly. She didn't know who these humans were or what they wanted, but they were the only ones who had responded to the distress call. With the Krex raiders getting closer every minute, she didn't have much choice. Tell them we're a research vessel that's been attacked by pirates. Tell them our location and that we need immediate assistance. And ask them ... double quotes. Ask them what kind of ship they have and how many crew members. Thymos sent the message and waited for a response. When it came, his face showed confusion. Commander, they say they're a cargo ship with 4 crew members. They're carrying mining equipment to the outer colonies. 4 crew members? Zoltara couldn't hide her disappointment. Against an entire Krex raiding fleet? There's more, Thymos continued. They say they'll be here in 90 minutes. And they're asking us to stay calm and prepare for combat support. Kexrio made a noise that might have been laughter if the situation weren't so desperate. Combat support? From a cargo ship with 4 people? Zoltara looked around the bridge at her frightened crew. The Krex raiders would arrive in less than 2 hours, and their only hope of rescue was 4 mysterious beings from a species nobody had ever heard of, flying a cargo ship. Commander, Thymos said quietly, what should I tell them? Zoltara took a deep breath. Tell them we'll be grateful for any help they can provide, and ask them to hurry. As the message went out into space, she could only hope that these unknown humans were more than they seemed. Because if they weren't, everyone aboard the Harmony's Edge would be dead before the day was over. Captain Jake Martinez was drinking his 3rd cup of coffee of the day when the distress call came through the speakers of the Iron Volf. He was a medium-sized man with dark hair and tired eyes, the kind of person who had seen too much in his 42 years of life. The cargo ship was his home now, carrying mining equipment and supplies between the outer colonies and the core worlds. Jake, you need to hear this, called Lisa Rodriguez from the communication station. She was his second-in-command, a tough woman with short black hair who had served in the Colonial Marines for 8 years before joining his crew. We're getting a distress signal from somewhere nearby. Jake set down his coffee mug and walked over to listen. The message was being translated by their computer, but even through the electronic voice, he could hear the fear and desperation. A research vessel under attack by pirates, Jake said quietly. How far away are they? About 90 minutes at full speed, Lisa replied. But Jake, there's something strange about this. The translation computer is having trouble with some of their words. I don't think they're from any human colony. Danny Brooks looked up from where he was checking the medical supplies. He was a big man with gentle hands who had been a medic in the army before becoming a civilian. You think they're aliens? Has to be, said Katie Walsh from the engine room over the ship's internal communication system. She was the youngest of the crew at 28, but she knew more about Starship engines than most people twice her age. I've been listening to their signal patterns. The technology is completely different from anything we use. Jake rubbed his chin thoughtfully. First contact with alien life was something that happened in movies and books, not to cargo ship captains. Hauling mining equipment? But the fear in that distress call was real, no matter what species had sent it. What kind of pirates are they dealing with? He asked. Lisa worked her controls for a moment. They call them Krex raiders. The computer is trying to translate their descriptions, but it sounds like there's some kind of reptile species that specializes in attacking peaceful ships. How many ships? At least 3, maybe more, all heavily armed. Lisa paused. Jake, we're just a cargo hauler. We've got some defensive weapons, but nothing that can take on a whole pirate fleet. Jake looked around the bridge of his ship. The Iron Wolf wasn't much to look at. She was an old cargo vessel that had been modified over the years with better engines, stronger hull plating, and a few weapon systems that weren't exactly legal in most star systems. But she was tough, and so was her crew. "Danny, how's our medical bay?" Jake asked. "Fully stocked," the medic replied. "I can handle anything short of major surgery." "Katie, can you give me emergency power to the weapons and shields?" "Already." "Working on it, Captain," came the reply from the engine room. "I can boost our power output by 30%, but only for about an hour before we risk damaging the reactor." Lisa was studying the tactical display. "Jake, I'm reading the location of the distress call. If we go in fast and hard, we might be able to surprise these cracks before they know what hit them." Jake thought about the 4 people on his ship. They were all former military, all experienced in combat situations. They had chosen the civilian life, but that didn't mean they had forgotten how to fight. And somewhere out there, peaceful researchers were about to die because nobody else was close enough to help. Send a message back to them, Jake decided. Tell them we're coming and to hold on. "What should I tell them about us?" Lisa asked. "Tell them we're human. Tell them we're a cargo ship, but we're coming to help anyway." Lisa sent the message and waited for a response. When it came, she looked puzzled. "They're asking what humans are. They say they've never heard of our species." "That's impossible," Danny said. "Humans have been exploring space for over 200 years. Maybe not in this part of the galaxy," Katie's voice came from the engine room. "There are still lots of places we haven't been." Jake made his decision. "It doesn't matter. They need help, and we're the only ones who can give it. Take us to maximum speed." The Iron Wolf turned toward the distress signal and began to accelerate. Jake went to his cabin and opened a locked cabinet, pulling out his old military uniform and the weapons he had hoped never to use again. In the corridor, he met Lisa doing the same thing. "Just like old times," she said with a grim smile. "Let's hope we remember how to do this," Jake replied as they traveled toward the unknown aliens. Katie kept giving them updates on the enemy ships. "I'm picking up 3 large vessels on the sensors. They're about twice the size of us, and they're heavily armed, but they're old designs, probably 50 years out of date." "What about the research ship?" Jake asked. "It's there, but barely. Their power signature is very weak." "I don't think they have much time left." Danny finished putting on his combat gear. "What's the plan, Captain?" Jake looked at his crew. They were scared, but they were ready. "We go in fast and loud. Katie, I want you to overload the cargo bay doors so they blow outward like a smokescreen. Lisa, target their weapon systems first. Danny, get ready to receive wounded." "What about you?" Lisa asked. "I'm going to try to talk to these aliens and find out what we're dealing with." The Iron Wolf dropped out of hyperspace near the battle zone, and immediately the screens lit up with warning signals. 3 massive ships with dark metal hulls were surrounding a smaller, more elegant vessel. The alien research ship was barely moving, and Jake could see damage along its hull. "There they are," Lisa said grimly. "Those must be the Krex raiders." Jake looked at the enemy ships. They were huge and covered with weapon ports. Each one was easily twice the size of the Iron Wolf, but they were moving slowly, like predators playing with their prey. "Katie, give me everything you've got," Jake ordered. "Lisa, charge all weapons. Danny, stand by." The Iron Wolf accelerated toward the battle, her engines glowing brighter as Katie pushed them beyond their normal limits. On the alien research ship, sensors would be detecting their approach. Jake wondered what the aliens would think when they saw a single small cargo ship charging toward 3 massive warships. "Captain," Lisa said quietly, "I'm getting a signal from the research ship. They're asking if we're sure we want to do this." Jake smiled grimly. "Tell them that humans don't leave people behind. Tell them we're coming, whether they think we can." Win or not, the Iron Wolf rushed toward the enemy ships, her hull glowing with heat from the overcharged engines. Inside, 4 humans prepared to face an enemy they had never seen before, to save aliens they had never met. "Here we go," Jake said, and pressed the attack button. The Krex war chief Gregtor was enjoying himself. His massive reptilian body filled the command chair of his flagship as he watched. His 2 other ships circled the dying alien research vessel. The little blue-skinned creatures inside were probably crying and begging for mercy by now. That was always the best part. "War Chief," called out his weapons officer. A smaller Krex with yellow eyes were detecting another ship approaching fast. Gregtor turned his huge head toward the tactical display. A small vessel was racing toward them at high speed. It was barely 1/3 the size of his smallest ship, probably another research vessel coming to help their friends. This day keeps getting better. "Should we destroy it immediately?" asked the weapons officer. "No," Gregtor said with a sound that might have been laughter. "Let it get close. I want to see the fear in their eyes before we kill them." But as the small ship got closer, something strange happened. Instead of slowing down or trying to run away, it accelerated even more. And then it did something that made Gregtor sit up straight in his chair. It opened fire. The first blast hit Gregtor's ship right in the weapon control center. Sparks flew across the bridge as several of his gun systems went offline. The second shot hit one of his escort ships and knocked out its main shield generator. "What are they doing?" Gregtor roared. "That's a cargo ship. How dare they attack?" "US," the small ship, which the sensors now identified as the Iron Wolf, spun around in a tight circle and fired again. But this time, something came out of its cargo bay. It looked like a cloud of metal debris, but it was moving too fast and in too straight a line to be normal cargo. "War Chief!" the weapons officer shouted. "Those aren't cargo containers. They're improvised missiles." The metal object slammed into the second escort ship and exploded. The Krex vessel rocked backward, its hull smoking from multiple impacts. One of its main engines went dark. Meanwhile, aboard the Harmony's Edge, Commander Ziltara and her crew watched the battle with growing amazement. The small human ship was moving in ways that seemed impossible. It would accelerate straight at the massive Krex vessels, fire its weapons, and then turn away at the last second before the enemy could return fire. "How are they doing that?" Dr. Yulinara asked, staring at the tactical display. "Those maneuvers should crush anyone inside from the acceleration forces." "And look at their weapons," added Kexrio. "They're not using standard energy beams or plasma cannons. They're actually throwing physical objects at the enemy ships." Thamos was monitoring the human ship's communications. "Commander, I'm picking up their internal conversations. They're talking about something called kinetic bombardment and turning the cargo into shrapnel." Ziltara felt a chill run down her spine. These humans were using their own cargo as weapons. What kind of species thinks of such things? The Iron Wolf made another attack run, but this time it did something even more shocking. It flew directly between 2 of the Krex ships and released a cloud of what looked like metal dust. When the Krex tried to fire their weapons, the tiny particles interfered with their targeting systems and caused several shots to go wild. "They're using industrial metal powder as chaff," Prendel said quietly. "They're turning mining equipment into defensive countermeasures." On the bridge of the Iron Wolf, Jake Martinez was in his element. This was the kind of fighting he understood. Not the formal space battles between military fleets, but the dirty, improvised combat that happened when everything went wrong. "Katie, give me another burst of speed," he called out. "I want to get behind that big one." "Jake, I'm already pushing the engines past their safety limits." Katie's voice came from the engine room. "Any more and we might blow up." "Ganny, how are those improvised missiles working?" Jake asked. "Better than expected," the medic replied from the weapons station. "Turns out mining explosives work great in vacuum. Who knew?" Lisa was tracking the enemy ships on her tactical display. "Jake, the big one is trying to come around behind us." "And the research ship is in trouble? Their life support is failing?" "Then we need to end this fast," Jake decided. "Katie, I need you to do something." Crazy. I'm listening, came the reply. Can you vent our engine exhaust directly at that big ship? There was a pause. That would be incredibly dangerous. The heat could damage our own hull. But would it work? Oh, it would work. The sensors would be completely blinded, and if they're close enough, it might even damage their hull plating? Jake smiled grimly. Do it. The Iron Valve suddenly reversed direction and flew straight at Greater-S flagship. The Krex war chief couldn't believe what he was seeing. The tiny ship was going to ram him. But at the last second, the human ship spun around and fired its engines directly at the Krex vessel. The superheated exhaust from the Iron Valve's engines washed over Greater-S ship like a river of fire. The Krex sensors went completely blind, and the outer hull began to glow red from the heat. Several of his weapon systems overloaded and shut down. Impossible. Greater roared. They're using their own engine exhaust as a weapon. But the humans weren't done yet. While the Krex flagship was blind and overheating, the Iron Valve circled around and began firing at its weapon ports one by one. Each shot was perfectly aimed, as if the humans could see exactly where to hit to cause the most damage. War Chief, the weapons officer said nervously, we've lost 60% of our offensive capabilities. Maybe we should retreat? Retreat? Greater-S voice was full of rage. We outnumber them 3-1. They're just a cargo ship. But even as he spoke, one of his escort ships was sending a distress signal. The humans had somehow managed to disable both of its main engines and most of its weapons. It was drifting. Helplessly in space, aboard the Harmony's edge, the alien crew was trying to understand what they were witnessing. The humans had turned a simple cargo ship into a weapon using nothing but creativity and determination. They were fighting like their lives depended on it, but they were also fighting to protect complete strangers. Commander, Finlo said quietly, I'm monitoring their communications. They're not just trying to drive off the Krex, they're specifically trying to rescue us. But why? Dr. Yulinara asked. They don't even know us. We're not the same species. We can't offer them anything in return. Ziltara watched the small human ship dance between the massive Krex vessels, always attacking, never retreating. Maybe, she said slowly, that's exactly why they're doing it. The Iron Valve made another attack run, and this time Jake's voice came over the communication system. Alien research ship, this is Captain Martinez. We're going to get you out of this, but I need you to be ready to move when I tell you. Can your engines work at all? Kexrio checked his systems. We have backup engines at maybe 20% power. That'll have to do, Jake replied. When I give the signal, head for that asteroid field about 10,000 kilometers away. We'll cover you. Ziltara felt something she hadn't experienced in hours. Hope. These mysterious humans fighting against impossible odds with nothing but a cargo ship and their own courage were actually winning. All crew, she announced over the ship's communication system, prepare for emergency acceleration. Our new friends are about to show us what real fighting looks like. The fighting stopped as suddenly as it had begun. Two of the Krex ships were drifting helplessly in space, their weapons destroyed and their engines failing. The third ship, Greater-S flagship, was retreating quickly with smoke pouring from its damaged hull. The war chief had finally realized that these humans were not normal prey. Jake Martinez guided the Iron Valve alongside the alien research vessel. Both ships were damaged, but they were alive. This is Captain Martinez calling the research ship. Do you need immediate medical assistance? Commander Ziltara's voice came through the communication system, speaking in her musical alien language, that the translation computer converted to English. Captain Martinez, this is Commander Ziltara. We have several injured crew members, and our life support systems are failing. We would be very grateful for any help you can provide. We're coming aboard, Jake replied. Danny, get your medical kit. Lisa, you're with me. Katie, keep the engines running in case those pirates come back. The docking procedure was tricky because the two ships used completely different technologies. But Katie managed to create a temporary connection using emergency docking clamps and a flexible tunnel made from their cargo bay materials. Jake, Lisa, and Danny put on their spacesuits and crossed over to the alien ship. The moment they stepped inside, they knew they were in a completely different world. The corridors were wider than human ships, with soft lighting that seemed to come from the walls themselves. The air was thinner than Earth normal, and there was a strange, sweet smell that the air recyclers couldn't quite filter out. "Welcome aboard the Harmony's Edge," said a voice behind them. They turned to see Commander Ziltara approaching. She was about 6 feet tall with blue skin and large eyes that seemed to take up half her face. Her movements were graceful and careful, like someone who had never experienced real violence before. "Thank you for rescuing us," she continued. "I am Commander Ziltara. These are my officers Kexrio and Prindle." Jake removed his helmet and extended his hand. "Captain Jake Martinez. This is Lisa Rodriguez and Danny Brooks. Are you injured?" Ziltara looked at Jake's outstretched hand with confusion. Lisa quickly explained, "It's a human greeting. We shake hands to show friendship." When Ziltara carefully took Jake's hand, she was surprised by how strong his grip was. Human hands were much more powerful than Villani hands, and she could feel the calluses from years of hard work. "Your species is very strong," she said quietly. "We have to be," Jake replied. "Danny, check on their injured crew members. Lisa, see if you can help with their life support systems." As Danny began treating the wounded aliens, he was amazed by how different their biology was from humans. Their bones were lighter, their muscles were smaller, and their skin was much more delicate. Even a minor injury that would barely slow down a human seemed to cause them significant pain. "Commander," Danny said as he worked, "your crew needs to be more careful. These injuries look serious, but they're from impacts that would just give a human a bruise." "We are not a warrior species," Ziltara explained. "The Villani people have been peaceful for thousands of years. We explore and learn, but we do not fight." Meanwhile, Lisa was working with Kexrio to repair the life support systems. The alien engineer was fascinated by the tools Lisa had brought from the human ship. They were simple, heavy, and built to last, completely different from the delicate precision instruments his people used. "Your tools are very solid," Kexrio said, watching Lisa use a human plasma torch to weld a damaged power coupling. "They have to be," Lisa replied. "Human ships operate in some pretty rough conditions. Our tools need to work even when everything else is falling apart." "What kind of conditions?" Kexrio asked. Lisa paused in her work. "Well, asteroid fields, radiation storms, gravity wells near gas giants, solar flares, that sort of thing." Kexrio's 4 eyes widened. "You fly ships through asteroid fields? And radiation storms?" "Sometimes," Lisa said with a shrug. "Space is dangerous. You learn to deal with it." Back on the bridge, Jake was talking with Commander Ziltara about what had happened. She was asking questions about human technology and tactics, but Jake was more interested in learning about the aliens. "So your people are all scientists and researchers?" he asked. "Most of us, yes," Ziltara replied. "We have security forces, but they mainly keep order on our homeworlds. We rarely encounter hostile species like the Krex." "What about your home planet? What's it like?" Ziltara smiled, which looked strange on her alien face, but was somehow still recognizable as a happy expression. "Villani Prime is beautiful. The gravity is light, the atmosphere is pure, and the weather is always gentle. We have floating cities that move with the wind, and gardens that cover entire continents." Jake tried to imagine such a place. It sounded like paradise compared to the harsh worlds where humans lived. "That sounds amazing." "Very different from Earth. Tell me about your homeworld," Ziltara said. "What is Earth like?" Jake was quiet for a moment, thinking about how to explain. "Earth is challenging. The gravity is about twice what you're used to. The weather can kill you if you're not careful. We have storms that can destroy cities, earthquakes that can split mountains, and wild animals that see humans as food." Ziltara looked shocked. "Your planet tries to kill you?" "Every day," Jake said with a grin. "But that's what makes us tough. We learn to survive in conditions that would kill most species." "Is that why you're so good at fighting?" she asked. Jake nodded. "When your home planet is trying to kill you from the day you're born, you learn to adapt fast. You learn to use whatever you have available. You learn to never give up. Dr. Yelanara, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. Captain Martinez, your species evolved on what we would call a death world. A what? Jake asked. A death world, she explained. A planet so dangerous that most species would consider it uninhabitable. Extreme gravity, violent weather, predatory animals, natural disasters. We have theories about such worlds, but we've never met anyone who actually lived on one. And that's why you fight the way you do, Ziltara said, understanding dawning. In her large eyes, you don't just use your weapons and technology. You use everything around you as a weapon? We have to, Lisa said, joining the conversation. When you're fighting for survival, you can't be picky about your tools. Prindle, the medical officer, was studying the readings he had taken from Danny's medical scanner. Commander, I've been analyzing the human biological data. Their muscle density is 3 times higher than ours. Their bone structure is designed to handle impacts that would shatter our skeletons. And their nervous system processes pain and stress in ways that would allow them to keep functioning even when seriously injured. You're built for war, Ziltara said quietly. We're built for survival, Jake corrected. But sometimes survival means fighting? The aliens looked at each other with a mixture of fear and fascination. They had been rescued by beings from a world so dangerous that it had created a species of natural warriors. These humans could fight with tools and tactics that no peaceful species would ever think of, not because they were evil, but because they had no choice. Captain, Ziltara said carefully, are there more humans in space? More ships like yours? Jake nodded. Thousands of ships. Millions of people. We're expanding outward from Earth looking for new worlds to colonize. And they're all like you? She asked. Pretty much, Jake replied. Some are better fighters, some are better engineers, some are better doctors. But we all come from the same death world. Ziltara felt a chill run down her spine. The galaxy had just become a much more dangerous place. But as she looked at these humans who had risked their lives to save complete strangers, she also realized it had become a much safer place for peaceful species like her own. Captain Martinez, she said formally, I believe my people would very much like to meet your people. The peace didn't last long. Katie's voice crackled through the communication system from the Iron Vault, urgent and worried. Jake, we've got problems. I'm detecting multiple ships coming out of hyperspace. The Kreks are back, and they brought friends. Jake rushed to the alien ship's bridge with Commander Ziltara right behind him. The tactical display showed 6 large warships dropping into normal space around them. These weren't the damaged pirates from before. These were fresh ships with full weapons and shields. How many? Jake asked. 6 ships, Thymos reported from his station. All bigger than the ones we fought before, and Jake ... He paused, his alien face showing fear. One of them is 3 times the size of your ship. It's a Kreks dreadnought. Lisa's voice came through Jake's radio. Captain, I'm reading massive weapon signatures on that big one. It could probably destroy both our ships with a single shot. Jake looked at the display and felt his heart sink. Fighting 3 damaged pirate ships was one thing. Fighting 6 fresh warships, including a dreadnought, was something else entirely. But then he looked around the alien bridge at the frightened faces of the research crew, and his expression hardened. Katie, get back to the Iron Vault now, he ordered. Lisa, Danny, stay here and help with the alien ship. Jake, what are you thinking? Lisa asked. I'm thinking we need to level the playing field, Jake replied. Commander Ziltara, does your ship have any scientific equipment we can use as weapons? Weapons? Ziltara looked confused. We're a research vessel. We study plants and animals. We have geological scanners, atmospheric processors, specimen collection tools. Perfect, Jake said with a grim smile. Dr. Yelanara, what kind of experiments were you running before the attack? The alien scientist looked nervous. We were studying the volcanic activity on the nearby planet. We have deep core drilling probes. That can penetrate several kilometers into solid rock. And those probes, Jake asked, are they guided? Yes, they have their own navigation systems and small engines for precise positioning. Jake's smile got wider. Danny, you still remember how to program guided missiles? It's been a few years, but yeah, Danny replied. You want to turn their science probes into torpedoes? Exactly, Dr. Yelanara. How many probes do you have? 12 deep core probes, plus about 30 atmospheric analysis drones. That's 42 missiles, Lisa said, understanding Jake's plan. But Jake, these are scientific instruments. They don't have warheads. They don't need warheads, Jake explained. At the speed they're designed to travel, the kinetic energy alone will punch through any hull. And if we can program them to hit critical systems. Kexrio was following the conversation with growing amazement. You want to turn our geological equipment into guided projectiles? That's exactly what I want to do, Jake confirmed. But first we need to blind them. Commander, do you have any way to create a large cloud of particles in space? The atmospheric processors, Dr. Yelanara said suddenly. They're designed to analyze and modify planetary atmospheres. We could release a massive cloud of metallic particles. How big a cloud? Jake asked. Several thousand cubic kilometers, she replied. It would interfere with sensors and communications across a wide area. Perfect. That gives us cover to work. Now, about those specimen collection tools. They're basically small cargo haulers, Kexrio explained. They can grab objects up to 10 tons and move them around. Jake looked at the tactical display again. The Krek ships were moving into attack formation, taking their time because they thought they had already won. How close is that asteroid field? About 5,000 kilometers, Thymos reported. Close enough, Jake decided. Here's what we're going to do. We use the atmospheric processors to create a sensor blackout. Then we use the specimen collectors to grab asteroids and throw them at the enemy ships while we program the drilling probes as guided missiles. The alien stared at him in shock. Commander Ziltara spoke first. Captain, you want us to throw rocks at warships? Not just rocks, Jake corrected. Rocks moving at several thousand meters per second. Trust me, even a dreadnought will feel that. This is insane, Dr. Yelanara whispered. This is survival, Jake replied. Danny, Lisa, start reprogramming those probes. Kexrio, show me how the specimen collectors work. Dr. Yelanara, prepare the atmospheric processors. Commander, get your ship ready to move fast. The next 30 minutes were pure chaos. The humans worked with desperate efficiency, turning peaceful scientific equipment into weapons of war. Danny and Lisa reprogrammed the geological probes, replacing their rock analysis software with targeting programs from the Iron Wolf's missile systems. Meanwhile, Jake learned to operate the specimen collection system. The controls were designed for delicate scientific work, but Jake quickly figured out how to use them to grab large asteroids and accelerate them toward the enemy ships. Atmospheric processors ready, Dr. Yelanara reported. I can create a particle cloud dense enough to block most sensors. Specimen collectors loaded with 12 asteroids, Jake announced. Each one weighs about 8 tons. 42 drilling. Probes reprogrammed and ready, Danny added. They'll home in on engine signatures and weapon ports. Katie, are you ready on the Iron Wolf? Jake called. Ready as I'll ever be, came the reply. I've got our engines overcharged and our remaining cargo rigged to explode on impact. Commander Ziltara watched the preparations with a mixture of terror and fascination. In less than an hour, these humans had turned her peaceful research vessel into a weapon platform using nothing but creativity and determination. Jake, she said quietly, on my world, what you're doing would be considered impossible. On my world, Jake replied. Impossible just means you haven't tried hard enough. Yet, the Krek's dreadnought was moving closer, its massive bulk blocking out the stars. Jake could see weapon ports opening along its hull like the eyes of some giant predator. In a few minutes it would be close enough to destroy both ships with a single blast. All stations ready? Jake asked. Ready, came the replies from around the bridge. Then let's show these pirates what happens when they mess with Deathworlders, Jake said and pressed the button to release the atmospheric processors. The space around both ships suddenly filled with a glittering cloud of metallic particles. The Krek sensors went blind instantly, and their communication systems started failing. On the bridge of the dreadnought, warning lights began flashing as the crew tried to figure out what was happening. "Now!" Jake shouted. 12 asteroids launched from the Harmony's edge like cannonballs fired from an ancient warship. Each one was guided by the Specimen Collection System's precise controls. Aimed at specific targets on the enemy vessels. At the same time, 42 drilling probes shot out into space, their scientific programming replaced with military targeting software. They spread out like a swarm of mechanical insects, each one locking onto a different enemy ship. From the Iron Vault, Katie launched their remaining cargo containers, now packed with mining explosives and programmed to detonate on impact. The aliens on the bridge watched in amazement as their peaceful scientific equipment became a devastating weapon system. This was warfare like they had never imagined, not the clean, formal battles between military fleets, but the desperate, improvised combat of survivors who refused to give up. "Impact in 30 seconds, Danny reported. "All ships, prepare for evasive maneuvers," Jake ordered. "As soon as those projectiles hit, we move fast and hard." The first asteroid slammed into one of the smaller Krek ships and punched completely through its hull. The second and third impacts crippled another vessel's engines. The drilling probes began hitting their targets with surgical precision, each one designed to penetrate deep into solid rock, and now doing the same thing to enemy armor. "It's working!" Thymo shouted. 3 enemy ships are disabled." But the dreadnought was still coming, and it was firing blind into the particle cloud. Massive energy beams swept back and forth, searching for the human and alien ships. "Time to go," Jake said grimly. "All ships, follow my lead. We're going to finish this fight the human way." The Iron Vault and Harmony's Edge flew through the particle cloud like ghosts in a storm. Behind them, the Krek's dreadnought fired its massive weapons blindly, trying to hit targets it couldn't see. Jake guided both ships in a dangerous dance between the energy beams, using the disabled Krek's vessels as cover. "Jake, I've got an idea," Katie's voice came through the radio. "That big ship is firing so much energy that it's overheating its own weapons. If we can get close enough, we might be able to damage its cooling systems." "How close?" Jake asked. "Close enough to touch," Katie replied grimly. Lisa shook her head. "That's suicide. One hit from those guns and we're space dust." "Not if they can't see us coming," Jake said. He turned to Commander Ziltara. "How long will this particle cloud last?" "Maybe 10 more minutes," Dr. Yelanara answered. "Then it will spread out too much to be effective." "That's enough time," Jake decided. "Katie, bring the Iron Vault alongside." "Yes, we're going to ram that dreadnought." The aliens on the bridge looked at him in shock. "Ram it?" Kexrio asked. "Captain, that ship is 50 times our size." "Size doesn't matter if you hit the right spot," Jake explained. "Every ship has weak points, we just need to find them." Danny was studying the tactical display. "Jake, look at this." The dreadnoughts' weapons are all on the top and sides of the hull. The bottom is almost undefended. "Because they never expect anyone to attack from below," Lisa added. "Most species fight in neat formations, ship to ship. But humans don't fight fair," Jake said with a dangerous smile. "We fight to win." The 2 ships moved through the particle cloud toward the massive Krek's dreadnought. Jake could feel the tension on the bridge as the aliens watched their peaceful research vessel approach the enemy warship. They were scientists and explorers. Not warriors, but they were learning fast. "Captain," Thymos said quietly, "I'm monitoring Krek's communications. They're calling for more ships." "How many more?" Jake asked. "At least 20 vessels. They'll be here in 2 hours." Jake felt his heart sink. Even if they defeated the dreadnought, they couldn't fight an entire fleet. But then he looked around. The bridge at the determined faces of his crew and the aliens who had become their friends, and he knew they would try anyway. "One problem at a time," he said. "Right now, we deal with what's in front of us." The Iron Vault and Harmony's Edge reached the underside of the dreadnought without being detected. The massive ship was even bigger up close, its dark hull stretching out like a small moon above them. Jake could see the heat vents for the weapon cooling systems glowing red in the darkness. There, he pointed. Those cooling vents are the weak spot. If we can overload them, the whole weapon system will shut down. How do we overload cooling vents? Ziltara asked. We give them more heat than they can handle, Jake replied. Katie, can you vent our engine exhaust directly into those vents? I can do better than that, Katie answered. I can overload our reactor core and vent the plasma directly into their cooling system. It'll destroy our engines, but it should cripple their weapons. Do it, Jake ordered. Lisa, Danny, get ready to evacuate to the alien ship. This is going to get messy. The iron valve positioned itself directly under the largest cooling vent and began venting superheated plasma into the dreadnought systems. Immediately, alarms began sounding throughout the Krek ship as their weapon cooling systems overloaded. It's working, Dr. Yulanara shouted. Their weapon signatures are dropping. But the Kreks weren't finished yet. The dreadnought began to roll over, trying to bring its remaining weapons to bear on the two small ships. Jake realized they had only seconds before the massive vessel could crush them. All ships, emergency acceleration, he shouted. Get clear. Now. The Harmony's Edge shot away from the dreadnought just as it completed its roll. The Iron Wolf, its engines destroyed by the plasma venting, drifted helplessly in space. Jake watched his ship disappear under the massive Krek's hull and felt a stab of loss. The Iron Wolf had been his home for 5 years. Jake, Lisa said softly, I'm sorry about your ship. It was just metal and circuits, Jake replied. We saved lives, that's what matters. The dreadnought was still dangerous but wounded. Half its weapons were offline and it was venting atmosphere from multiple hull breaches. The other Krek ships that were still functioning began to retreat, unwilling to continue the fight against enemies who had already destroyed most of their fleet. They're running, Thymos reported with amazement. The Kreks are actually retreating. Jake nodded grimly. They'll be back with more ships. We need to get out of here and warn your people about what's coming. Commander Ziltara looked at him with deep respect. Captain Martinez, what you and your crew have done today will be remembered forever. You risk everything to save people you had never met. That's what humans do, Jake said simply. We help each other. Doesn't matter if you're human or alien. Dr. Yulanara was working at her science station. Captain, I've been analyzing the battle data. The tactics you used, the weapons you improvised, the way you fought. No species in our records has ever done anything like this. We're new to your part of the galaxy, Jake reminded her. No, you don't understand, Dr. Yulanara continued. In 3 hours, using nothing but a cargo ship and scientific equipment, you defeated a Krex raiding fleet that could have destroyed an entire planet. Most military forces couldn't have done what you did. Kexrio was nodding agreement. Captain, if there are more humans like you in space, everything is going to change. The Krex, the Thoric Empire, all the predator species that prey on peaceful worlds. They won't be able to continue. Jake thought about that. He and his crew were just ordinary people trying to make a living hauling cargo between the colonies. But to these aliens, they were warriors from a death world, capable of fighting and winning against impossible odds. Commander Ziltara, he said carefully, what exactly are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that my people need to meet your people. She replied, the peaceful species of this galaxy have been victims for too long. We need allies who know how to fight, who understand that sometimes violence is the only way to protect the innocent. And in return? Jake asked. In return, we offer friendship, technology, and knowledge of the galaxy. We can show you safe routes to habitable worlds, teach you about the different species you'll encounter, help you establish trade and diplomatic relations. Jake looked at his crew. They were tired, injured, and homeless, but they were alive. And they had made friends with beings from another world, not bad for a day's work. I think, he said slowly, that sounds like a fair deal. The Harmony's Edge began its journey toward Villani space, carrying the first human diplomatic mission to an alien civilization. Behind them, the damaged Krex ships retreated into the darkness. carrying word of a new species that fought like demons and protected the innocent without asking for reward. In the weeks that followed, news of the human rescue spread throughout the peaceful worlds of the galaxy. Some species were curious, others were frightened, but all of them understood that everything had changed. The humans had arrived, and they brought with them a simple but revolutionary idea that good people should stand together against those who would do them harm. War Chief Gregtor, healing in a medical bay aboard his damaged flagship, swore vengeance against these new enemies. But even as he planned his revenge, he felt something he had never experienced before when facing prey. Fear. The Deathworlders had come to the galaxy, and nothing would ever be the same. Jake Martinez, looking out at the stars from the bridge of an alien ship, smiled quietly. Somewhere out there, Earth was sending more ships into space, more humans ready to explore and trade, and make friends with whoever they met. The galaxy was about to become a much more interesting place.